John Duffey, a fiery bluegrass mandolin player and high tenor singer, has been inducted twice into the International Bluegrass Music Association Hall of Fame, first with the Country Gentlemen in 1996, and then with the Seldom Scene in 2014. John is credited with introducing rural Appalachian bluegrass music to urban audiences through these two groups. Sadly, John passed away at the young age of 62 in 1996. To celebrate and reminisce about John's life and music on the 15th anniversary of his passing, Akira Otsuka invited John's old bandmates and friends to a party at his house in Maryland on December 10th of 2011. Akira Otsuka and Gary Kopp put together this production in tribute to John Duffey. Before we dive into these Duffey stories, let me introduce you to the bluegrass luminaries who were in attendance. John Starling, an original member of the Seldom Scene, went to medical school at the University of Virginia, where he met his future bandmate, Ben Eldridge, and they started jamming. After returning from Vietnam, he started working as an ENT doctor. Duffey joked that stood for ear, nose, and wallet. That was at Walter Reed Army Hospital in Washington, D.C., and he bought a house near where Ben Eldridge lived, in Bethesda, Maryland. John Starling's Spring Training album with Carl Jackson won a Grammy Award, and he was a music coordinator and co-producer of the Trio albums, featuring Linda Ronstadt, Emmylou Harris, and Dolly Parton. Mike Auldridge grew up in Kensington, Maryland. In addition to playing a resonator guitar, also known as a dobro, he worked as a commercial graphic artist for the Washington Star newspaper until it folded in 1981. Mike first started with Bill Emerson and Cliff Waldron, then Cliff Waldron and the New Shades of Grass, and in 1971, he was a founding member of the Seldom Scene. He received the National Heritage Fellowship Award from the National Endowment for the Arts right before his death in December of 2012. Mike drew this self-portrait at Senri, Osaka, Japan during the Seldom Scene's tour in 1985. Ben Eldridge was from Richmond, Virginia, and worked as a mathematician. After Bill Emerson left Emerson and Waldron to join the Country Gentlemen, Ben joined Cliff's band in 1970. After recording 3 acclaimed albums with Cliff Waldron, Ben's informal basement band became the Seldom Scene, and Ben stayed with the group for the next 44 years, passing away in 2024. Bill Emerson met John Duffey and took his first banjo lesson from him while still in high school. In 1957, he, along with John Duffey and Charlie Waller, formed the Country Gentlemen. After he left the band, he joined Jimmy Martin's Sunny Mountain Boys, and then went on to form Emerson and Waldron. When Eddie Adcock left the Country Gentlemen, Bill returned to the band and recorded many now classic albums, some with Jimmy Gaudreau and some with Doyle Lawson. Jimmy Gaudreau is from Rhode Island and replaced John Duffey in the Country Gentlemen upon John's departure in 1969. Jimmy stayed with them until 1971. And after that, he played with Eddie Adcock's second generation, J.D. Crowe and the New South, Chesapeake, John Starling and Carolina Star, plus his own country store, and Spectrum, which included a young Bela Fleck. Akira still has a pick Jimmy gave him in June of 1971. Pete and Kitsy Kuykendall have been very active in the bluegrass world. Pete was best known as the managing editor of Bluegrass Unlimited magazine, but he also played banjo, wrote songs, owned a publishing company, and was a recording engineer. Pete and Kitsy had a major role in creating the International Bluegrass Music Association. Dudley Connell first made his name in bluegrass circles as the lead vocalist and guitarist with the Johnson Mountain Boys, based out of Washington, D.C. He joined the Seldom Scene in 1995, along with Fred Travers and Ronnie Simpkins, before departing at the end of 2024. His deep knowledge of blues, rock, and early country music kept supplying new material to the Seldom Scene's repertoire. Fred Travers performed with the Gary Ferguson Band and Paul Adkins and the Borderline Band before joining the Seldom Scene in 1995. It's not easy to follow a dobro master like Mike Auldridge, but Fred's precise and tasteful playing has been a big part of the current Seldom Scene sound. He usually sings baritone in the Seldom Scene's vocal trios, but also does some of the lead vocals in the band. Katy Daley worked as a DJ at WAMU, WMZQ, and Bluegrass Country Radio in the Washington, D.C. area, and has been a big supporter of the Seldom Scene from day one, and a key player in the world of bluegrass. She's received numerous awards from the International Bluegrass Music Association and the D.C. Bluegrass Union, and now hosts the Bluegrass Stories podcast. She was inducted into IBMA's Hall of Fame in September of 2024. I'm Lee Michael Demsey, seen here in my younger years, and have been broadcasting bluegrass on WAMU and bluegrasscountry.org in D.C. since 1982. I've also received the Distinguished Achievement Award from IBMA and was named their Broadcaster of the Year back in the early 1990s. I also compile Bluegrass Unlimited magazine's monthly Top 30 list, and have been doing so since 1990. While attending the John Duffey tribute party, I just sat back and listened to all the great John Duffey stories. Ronnie Freeland was the son of Charles Dick Freeland, the founder of Rebel Records. Ronnie was exposed to bluegrass from an early age and showed a keen interest in engineering live events and studio recordings. He recorded Ralph Stanley's Live at McClure album just a week before his 16th birthday. His recording credits include the country Gentlemen, Seldom Scene, Ralph Stanley, Nils Lofgren, Longview, Danny Gatton, Kenny Smith, Bill Emerson, Hazel Dickens, Cliff Waldron, and many, many more. Ronnie also produced the Epilogue, a tribute to John Duffey CD with Akira Otsuka, and an all-star lineup of bluegrass musicians, eager to honor one of their bluegrass heroes. Tom Gray was a member of both the Country Gentlemen and the Seldom Scene. He was helping Eddie and Martha Adcock do a benefit show for the homeless at the Station Inn in Nashville and could not attend the party. Akira Otsuka was born and raised in Japan. He formed the Bluegrass 45 in 1967, who toured the United States in 1971 and 72. Akira is a renowned mandolin player who has played with many of the greatest musicians in bluegrass, including Peter Rowan and Jethro Burns. Back in the 80s, he was also a part of the innovative Washington, D.C. band Razzmatazz, as well as being an accomplished composer, producer, and photographer.
Duffey Stories. Somebody has to start.
Where's Bill Emerson?
Hey,
Well, that's true. Emerson would.
have you got any old Bill Emerson? Have you got any old Duffey stories from way back when?
speak right up. It's being recorded.
First time I ever saw John Duffey was at the Hot Shop in Bethesda.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a drive-in.
East-West Highway.
East-West Highway, Wisconsin Avenue, right?
I worked there for 10 years.
Did you?
They
What
all.
was the name of the place?
The Hot Shop.
Oh, I remember it, yeah.
Running from where we used to live.
And he'd back his car in the back of the place. And of course, you drive all the way around. And you had these things, you know, like a drive-in theater where you'd order your hamburger.
Teletray.
Teletray. He'd back his car in there, and I saw him sitting in his car playing his mandolin. And he had an A model mandolin that was originally sold by Montgomery Ward's, and he bought it at a postal auction. And he painted the top of it white, and it had a crack where the F hole is. Had a crack. It went back, and he took a piece of plate aluminum and drilled holes in it and had that on the top.
Sounds like a typical fish.
But I heard this instrument playing, and I didn't play anything. I was just a kid, and I saw this guy saw something white, and I went over there, and it was John Duffey, and he was sitting there in the back of his car, just looking around, you know. And I found out when he just lived a mile from me. So I got my first banjo. I put it across the handlebars on my bike. I rode down to John's house and said, "John, how do you play this thing?" He said, "Oh, well, let me see it." You know, he said, "You put a pick on this finger, take this pick and put it on like this, and this one here." And they took a piece of paper and a pencil and drew me out the chords, and that's how I got started playing banjo.
Is that right?
Wow.
So then on the Country Gentlemen, I was playing with Buzz Busby at the time. It was 1957, July 4th. And Eddie Edcott and myself and a bass player by the name of Vance Truel were playing at the Admiral Grill
Yeah.
in Bailey's Crossroads.
Bailey's Crossroads.
And no, it was a Crossroads restaurant.
Yeah, what's it called there?
Crossroads, yes. And
Wait a minute. No, it was Admiral Grill. Crossroads was later.
that's right.
There you go.
And it's where Bradley Acura is today. That's where it was. It's just a little brick place. And when we got done playing, Buzz wanted to go to North Beaches because they stayed open all night. Go in there and drink and gamble. And
North Beach, Fred.
So
In the woods.
Eddie and Vance Truel and Buzz got in a car with the guy and they went to North Beach, and on the way back, the guy fell asleep and it crashed and put them all in the hospital. And Buzz said, Bill, you please get some guys and get in there and hold that job. So I gotta get out of the hospital. So, John Duffey, I got John Duffey. I got Charlie Waller. Charlie lived at his mom's house on Sleepy Hollow Road at Seven Corners.
I used to live on Sleepy Hollow Road.
Yeah.
Right off of
Bluegrass people, man.
Incestuous
That was the beginning of the country. I went in there to the Admiral Grill and played those jobs there, and then when Buzz came back, we decided let's stay together. And John Duffey taught me how to sing baritone, didn't know how, had no idea. I just stood in the corner and drank beer and played the banjo.
That's all you need to do, right?
John Duffey is the guy that really got me started and showed me the very basics on the banjo. So that's my story.
That's a great story.
Then I told him the story about you and Paul Kraft and how you taught Paul how to play the banjo, and he got real
Next thing I
mad.
knew, he was playing with Jimmy Marley. Talking about like 9 months later or something.
He also loves a new banjo job.
Oh,
And by the way, you ought to be, thank heavens it was Paul and not you. I think you wound up in the right place.
oh God, I hope so. No, I remember the first time I ever saw John and you and Charlie, probably in 1958, when they used to have the contest down at Warrenton. It was over at Johnny Clark's house.
Yeah.
And I think it was 50. I was in school and you guys came in, and I'd been sitting around playing. I remember when you all walked in, I was playing Durrell Dixie. And I remember hearing you go, "There's that guy over there." Anyway, you all came in and started picking, and I could not believe my ears, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the dangest, greatest thing I'd ever heard in my
Well, the
life.
thing is we never got any better.
Well, it was. Do you remember that afternoon?
I think I do.
The contest had gotten rained out, and everybody congregated over at Johnny Clark's house.
Was that the old place or the new place on down past Bluegrass and Lincoln where he lived?
I don't know.
Where his dad had a big mansion.
It was a big mansion. It was
That's-
a big, fancy.
That was his dad's place. And the gun shop was just a little
Right.
stone building.
Right.
Yeah, because I used to go out there and he'd set up sticks of dynamite out in the field. And he'd get these carbines and we'd shoot dynamite.
Is he still alive?
No, he's passed away.
Is that right?
He got blew up. He blew up real good.
Actually, his brother did. Because it was the Clark brothers.
Yeah.
And the brother did get blown up. With
Yeah,
the
literally.
powder keg, literally.
Black powder.
Since we're telling dynamite stories,
like
this is the perfect segue for the Seldom Scene opens for Mr. Dynamite down at the Maryland Raceway.
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah, Jimmy was there.
Tell the Mr. Dynamite
We'll talk
story.
about that one, Mike. You remember that?
Talking about dirt
No, it
duff.
was a,
That was
an
Mike's,
act.
it was dirt duff.
They're double, yeah. Yeah, this guy actually billed himself as the Maine Maniac because he was from Maine.
Is it a dirt track somewhere in southern Maryland?
Some racetrack down in
Yeah.
southern Maryland. I don't remember what year. It must have been in the 70s.
74.
74. Yeah, oh, definitely you were there.
You were there on the back of a flatbed
I
truck.
like me, John. I don't remember anything.
But we played in between the races.
Remember, John?
Once, and we had to play two sets, and one of them was between two races, and then the other set was after the race.
Yeah.
Well, and also part of the show was in between.
Oh, that's right.
This guy had a little wooden thing, but the thing is this, it was like half the size of this rug, and he had a hole in the ground, but like this, and maybe 3 feet deep, and he would put a stick of dynamite there, and then he'd get in and close. I was there. I went flying. This guy came out of the
And the rescue squad had to go over and revive him.
knock him out. He had blood coming out of his ears.
Heck, we made a big 11 man.
But the Seldom Scene opened for this guy.
Yeah, we were his opening act. So then I went over and I asked the guy, I said, how many, have you ever, do you do this a lot? He said, I do it every week, twice. I do it on Saturday, every Saturday, and twice on Sunday. Depending on what racetrack.
His first response was,
What? But the funny part was, after the second race, and then we had to play another set, and there was nobody there. All left. They didn't care about us at all.
Okay, Kai, it's your
you were
turn.
there with the country store, right?
You all were on the same show.
We were on the same show, so I can bear witness that everything you just said was absolutely true.
I picked you up.
What?
Duffey Stories.
Well, the first time I ever saw John was, this was even pre-Emerson, in that I was playing with Benny and Valley Kenny, and we went up to a contest at Frederick Fairgrounds, I remember, and John was playing with Lucky Chapman.
That's
at the
right.
time.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the first time I saw him, and I really didn't pay that much attention to him, but he was, you know, there was a whole lot of us in and around the area. Buzz was kind of the anchor band. Benny and Valley were one of the anchor bluegrass bands in the thing. And John was a strange animal, as most of you know. In that, well, he had his own way, but once you would get him kind of in a corner, because I worked a lot in the studio with him, and he was very creative, he was very musical, even though his mandolin playing might not have been that on the mark. But I remember when Bill Clifton came up to record a number of the things that he did, and he got John because he wanted a tenor singer. And actually the first session that I did with John was on was Paul Kraft was playing banjo on it. And that very first Soldier Sing Me a Song. But I guess one of the common things that John and I had was songs, material, and this is one guy here that a lot of Emerson does not get the credit, because we were all looking for something different than playing the same old you know.
But John Duffey's, one of his major rules was be different at all costs.
Yeah, that's true. But I remember John, when he wrote essentially the melody to Bring a Mary Home and rearranged it. And he was great with coming up with songs. And of course, as I told Bill earlier, my first wife, Ann, was a poet. She could come up with words. In fact, she wrote a good part of Christmas Time Back Home. But John, after I split with my first wife, with her, he knew that she was a good poet. And he would call her up, you know, it's time to cut a session, you know, you got any poems? And she would come up with something, and the Don't Bother with White Satin was one.
Bring Mary Home.
Well, no, Bring Mary Home was done on a Bill Clifton session. But John was the mandolin player of the session.
Oh, okay.
And
Bill Clifton was the first person to record it singing it.
yes, it was John would give Bill like 6 months to get it out, and that was one of the ones that they picked up they wanted to cover, and they finally did. And Clifton's came out like in March, and the Gentleman's version of it came out like in April, and of course the Clifton's thing was buried on an album that nobody's ever even heard there, but it was a great song.
To me, Bringing Mary Home it turned me on to the country gentleman note. I mean, the first time I heard that, I went, "Whoa, what is this band?" I got to find out more.
Well, I think it was one of the ones that was the bridge between the hardcore Bill and Rowe, Flat and Scruggs type bluegrass, and, if you wish, the second generation and/or newgrass, if you want to call it that. I never got that feeling. You guys were they were basically a bluegrass band. They just happened to be younger doing it rather than the old folks.
I think we're talking about Bill finding songs when the first time you brought Fox on the Run with the Emerson and Auldridge thing.
Oh yeah.
I thought, and I had never heard of this guy Manford Mann.
And his band.
Household word.
That's right.
That we were all looking for tunes, looking for tunes to do that weren't back to the cabin,
Right.
And anything that had good lyrics and a pretty good tune that was adaptable to bluegrass, we snatched it and took it in the studio.
I can remember when we played at the Red Fox, we'd get asked to play that like 10 times every time we played there. Still get asked. We actually did it. I don't think we ever do it.
We do it, yeah.
You do Fox on the Run?
We do.
I won't say something about John Duffey. People, when you think of the country gentleman, well, who's the lead singer? Well, Charlie Waller,
Yeah.
Well, when you really get down and think about it, John Duffey is a guy that sang lead on more hits for the country gentleman than anybody.
Yeah.
John Duffey was, Baby Blue, Bringing Mary Home,
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he was a Seldom Scene, and at one time he told us he was the country gentleman.
What? Make no mistake.
There may have been alcohol involved.
In vino veritas.
I said, it was a funny thing to me, but the first time I met Duffey, he was a hard guy to talk to. And as a matter of fact, I thought he was a dobro player, because I was at this place called Kramer's. This place called Kramer's Pool was out in Sunshine, Maryland. We used to go out there to go swimming in the summertime, and there was this little bluegrass band out in the parking lot. And there was this guy playing a dobro, and I loved Josh Graves and Wilma Lee and Stoney Cooper and all this stuff, And I thought, damn, there's a guy that's actually playing a dobro, So I went over there and tried to talk to him, but it was like talking to a dog, so I thought, I don't know who the guy is, but he's not a bad dobro player. So, and then I found out it was this guy, John Duffey, and he played down at the Shamrock. So, and I went down to Shamrock one night and tried to talk to him about dobro. And he wouldn't even look at me. He was like always going like this with the end of his I would say.
Well, the truth is, John Duffey was a very shy person.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that to see him on stage. But I remember after whatever show we'd be playing, people would want to come up and get autographs and this, that, and the other. And Ben and Mike were just right on top of it. Of course, Tom was a bass player, so they didn't want his. But they'd want to talk to Ben and Mike and John, but John would just literally run to get away from it and just go back to the motel room and hang.
Yeah, he'd go hide in the car.
Yeah, he used to say, I give everything I've got when I'm out there on stage, and when I get off the stage, I'm done.
He'd make fun of me, call it holding court. I was just trying to be
But he
nice
was a shy person. He had a reputation of being sort of aloof, but it was because he was shy. It wasn't because he was just trying to be a jerk, you know.
Jimmy tells a great story about the first night he played with the Gentlemen.
Oh, okay, you're gonna put me right on the spot.
Oh, I remember this. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, well, here's the thing, in 1969, when John gave notice that he was quitting the Gents, they put out the casting call, and actually Herschel Sizemore got it first. He come up and spent a while.
Wait a minute, Jimmy, I just got to say one thing before you do this. I thought that, what are the country gentlemen going to do without John Duffey? That's Endo. And then I went down to Culpeper and saw the country gentlemen play with you, and I went, wow. That's all I gotta say. I did their still in business, man.
Well, now I don't have to tell my story.
Tell it, yeah.
Yeah, so Herschel came up from Roanoke, I guess, and stayed a while, and then decided, I really don't want to move my family and my life to DC. So he said thanks, but no thanks, and back he went. And at the time, the Country Gentlemen had a tour booked to Japan. One of the reasons, I guess, that Duffey decided he was going to leave was because he wasn't flying back then, and he just said, "You guys are going to go to Japan. I'm out of here. So get somebody else." So I got a phone call right out of the blue from Ronnie's dad, Dick Freeland, and it changed my life because I literally, he said, "Here's the story. John Duffey's leaving the Country Gentlemen. We need a tenor singing mandolin player that knows Country Gentleman material, and we need him like yesterday." So I said I couldn't even think about it. I just said, "Yeah, I'll come down, and I'll audition for the job," not realizing, I'm probably one of the most ignorant people in the world to have not thought about the fact that, like you said, John was the Country Gentleman. You don't take John Duffey's place in a group.
How old were you?
But you don't think I was 22, just about to turn 23. Yeah. So, when Dick said, "You got to make up your mind like very, very soon, call me back like tomorrow. You get a day to think about this." And I said to myself, I'm never going to get another chance like this in my entire life. I'm up here in Rhode Island. I play mandolin, and I don't have any chance of escaping Rhode Island as a mandolin player if I do not take this job. Literally. And so I came down here and auditioned with Charlie and Eddie and Ed Ferris, who was playing bass at the time. Passed the audition, and they said, "Okay, just stay." So
Well,
moved in.
there was one thing they kind of called you on.
I
think it was the accent, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I looked all around the car, but Mary wasn't there. And Charlie, I think, he can hit the notes, but I think we're just going to have to work on that accent. So, 40-some years later, I'm still saying car. But anyway, so they were playing the Shamrock, and Duffey stayed away for a while, and gave me
that was his way.
enough time to hang myself down there and learn their material. And then I can remember it just as well as I'm sitting here, walked in the door one night and the whispers are around, Duffey's here, Duffey's here. And I'm going, I'm like Jackie Gleason, you know, humming. And then, you know, not directly in the front row, but I could see directly, you know, a couple tables back, John and Nancy were sitting right there facing the stage, and those eyes were right on me, and I could see my pants leg going like this. You know, it's like, we get on stage and got through the first set, and it was like, I don't remember anything about what I played, or but I remember getting off, and he goes, oh, he said, come here, sit down. You know, so, and then I went over to the table and sat with John and Nancy, and he said, I like what you do, and he says, I especially like the fact that you're not trying to copy my licks or anybody else's licks. You're pretty much your own guy. You're a good technician. You're obviously, and you know, you can hit the tenor stuff with no problem, with ease. And he said, but I'm going to give you one hint right now, and remember this. You got to learn how to sell it. And from that point, it was like, oh, yeah. You know, I had seen enough of him in that particular configuration to know that even if you don't hit the right notes and, you know, you're playing all over the place and just looking at the crowd, you will get applause. You know, if you are selling it, and no matter how good a technician you are, if you're not selling it, you're just another guy on the stage playing good notes. And you're not getting a hand.
Well, it didn't take you long to catch
His hero was Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson was his hero, and that's what he just wished that he could. And when he was on stage, he almost had that same kind of banter about him. And Ben was the straight man. he was straight man.
I used to whisper things in his ear, bad stuff in his ear.
Oh yeah, right. I can believe that.
And it'd come right out. And he got the blame for it, and I was the one that really was.
Excellent.
I remember the first time I ever met John Duffey was at Lynn Holsclaw's Christmas party downstairs in the basement, and I can remember getting up and trying to sing with him. And I started trying to sing as loud as he was singing, and after about 10 minutes I had no voice left. I did just smoke sticks, like, oh God.
I remember he quit smoking one time.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
And we'd had a trio for 10 years or whatever, and I knew how loud to sing, to blend, and he quit smoking. He was smoking like 3 packs of Camels a day or whatever. And he got it down to where he was smoking maybe 1 or 2 cigarettes a day. And he was singing so loud it hurt. I mean, it was like a siren going off. I mean, I was hollering my part. And he's standing this far away from the microphone and bled and just wiping me out. Like,
well, he was
please start smoking.
He was so good. He was so good when it come to that real high, loud part, man. He would turn away from the microphone, and I'm up there eating it, trying to make sure I'm heard, and he's over here, and he's still, unbelievable.
It was unbelievable.
He did admit that at least his dad showed him how to breathe.
Yeah.
And that was
His dad was
that was how he got the.
Yeah, he was an opera singer.
Yeah. He wasn't in the Maine Met like in New York, but he was like, apparently they had, I don't want to say farm teams, but
Traveling.
yeah. And, but he did. He did say that his dad set him down. If you're going to do that stuff, you got to learn how to breathe so you don't save your voice.
I traveled with him all the time. Everybody kind of took their own cars, but John and I always rode together. And we were flying up some road down there in Virginia, and we came over this hill, and there's a state patrol guy sitting over in between the lanes. And this was the days where everybody had radar detectors on there, on the dashboard. And we came over this hill about 80 miles an hour, and there he was, and he said, get that radar, and the guy pulled that right behind us. He said, get that radar, and he put it on your seat, so I grabbed it, put it on the seat. So the cop, after about a mile or so, he turns on his lights, and we pull over the side of the road. And he's standing over John's window, and he says, license and all that business, and he said, what you got under the seat?
Oops.
And John said, what do you mean? I don't have anything under the seat. And he said, I'm talking to you. And I'm just looking. Oh, and I forgot the most important part was that John had kept a German Luger under his seat.
I remember that.
And I had stuffed this thing under there too. So when the guy said, I'm talking to you, buddy, and I said, what? And Don said, just give it to him.
Yeah.
You know, because they would take it from you.
Yeah.
So I reached down there, and the guy said, you either give it to me or I'm coming around there to get it. And I felt, oh good, because right beside it is a German Luger.
Oh, God.
Oh, you mean I was shaking like a leaf because I thought he was going to make me pull that German Luger out of there.
Wow.
You have to check out the Christmas cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't talk about the lady who OBGYN keeps her. We won't talk about that.
Oh.
Well, you're gonna have to now.
Oh, well, he was at the, he was said to the audience that well, we're gonna do something, somebody asked for this, so we're gonna do this song, and this woman.
Bring it Mary home, and some woman didn't want to hear it. She said, no, don't do that one again. And he got offended by it. He said, well, ma'am, may your gynecologist
Oh, yeah.
keep his glove in the freezer.
And then Ben happened to mention that on stage one night.
Oh, he did?
And this woman came up to him after the show and said, I was the lady.
That was the last, I think that's the last time he ever did anything like that. That was just before he died, when that happened at the Birchmere. Yeah.
You know, I was something just equally as embarrassing. I remember being out in we were in Lyons, Colorado, and I broke a guitar string, and I went back to change it, and he said, and you know, he's bantering on, and he said, you got the string changed yet? And I said, John, I'm coming. He said, I'm not really interested in your personal life. You changed the string yet.
And the whole audience started going,
Yeah, oh no, it was, you could hear crickets. I mean, it was not good.
What was the name of the engineer that did that?
Roy Homer.
Roy Homer.
Roy Homer, oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I think after the first, when we did Act One, either right before the first session or right before the second session, because we did them on consecutive Sunday afternoons, I think.
His daughter still comes to see shows every now and then.
I'm the history.
Sam? Roy Homer's daughter? What's her name? Cheryl.
Oh, no good.
You didn't want me to stand up and say it.
I went out in the hallway, and he used to have all these records tacked up on the wall of people that had cut there, and there was this one group that, and the group was called Spanish Grass, and I had written that song, and I thought, damn, that's a cool title for it. I'm gonna call my song Spanish Grass. And that's where our guy was on while I was hiding from.
That's interesting. Inspiration comes from men.
Yeah, really.
Roy put that out on his own label. Roy Homer
That'll be your
did.
story.
With,
No.
That Spangrass. Bingham.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Bluegrass 45 was at the Roy Studio recording an album. Duffey produced our second album. And we are recording. We finished recording, and in the booth is Dick, Roy, and John. They won't play back for the track we just recorded. They won't play back for us. They're just talking in there. We are like, I messed up my melody break. We had nervous wreck. John comes up to my brother Josh. Say wary. Josh says, wary? Okay, let's cut it again. They didn't care about instruments. He just wanted my brother to pronounce it right.
no hoof prints in the snow or nothing like that.
No ribbon, red rib.
Gaudreau is the cover of my Brew Rose.
We might be floating into dangerous territory.
But hey, the Bluegrass 45 covered Caravan, and John Duffey played cymbal with a brush.
Did he really?
He did.
Huh. Did he bring you guys tunes to record?
What am I doing hanging around?
Oh, is that right?
Last call.
Do you guys cut this?
We cut it like 2 months before you guys did.
Yeah, really. Really, I didn't know that.
There you have it.
He would steal from any place he could.
Oh, yeah.
But he got.
I mean, every time I hear 500 miles, their version, y'all's version of it,
Oh, boy.
the only one I can think of is the Journeyman, because that's where he stole it from.
Yeah.
If you go back and dig out the Journeyman album, because he was in love with the, John Phillips, was that the lead singer with the Journeyman?
The Journeyman, I'm not familiar with them. It was a folk group?
Folk group there.
You can find them on YouTube.
They kind of morphed into the Mamas and Papas.
Really?
Yeah, but 500 miles, guy came up and wanted to hear that because he apparently had heard the Journeyman's version, and I knew like a verse or two from it. We started doing it, and then he was quite in love with John Phillips because he was a heck of a good singer.
But so John was kind of tuned into the big folk scare sort of thing.
Yeah, oh sure.
Absolutely.
But
When we started, man, it's the Stanley brothers were his heroes.
Right.
Absolutely.
There was no folk.
Right,
It's been
right.
on their own, the Stanley brothers. And when that folk thing happened, I mean, Johnson, you hear what? Look what I happened upon, you know?
Right, right,
And the country gentlemen will record Baby Blue, you
right,
know,
right.
and taking that, going in that direction, which, who's to say, that may have saved the country gentleman right there.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Because they had that
quite the
combination.
direction.
Yeah, they had the combination, Eddie and John. When we were playing Stanley Brothers songs.
Right, right.
And we had no identity like they eventually wound up founding, you know?
Yeah.
I never realized that. So,
I'd heard somewhere that Baby Blue, that Ann brought that song to John and sang it to John because she knew that if she presented Bob Dylan's version, John would have gone, that sucked. You know, but to present it to him without him ever hearing
That's
Bob
what
Dylan's
I
version.
would do that.
well, yeah, Starling did that. You did that for the scene. There,
What's
where
that?
they
Yeah.
bring in songs that were by some rock artist or whatever, and we wouldn't have accepted it except you sang it. And we thought, yeah, that's
Well,
good
now,
too.
when I would go over to his house, you know, when we first started, I thought, well, maybe he wants to listen to some, make a new record. And so I went over to his house one night and he was watching some movie. And I said, drove over there from Bethesda.
And you had to watch the movie too, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. But I kept saying, I said, hey, I got some tape here. Would you like to hear any of these tunes that we might consider doing? They're original songs. And he said, I don't have time for that. I said, you go learn them and I'll tell you whether we can do them. Which was probably the best advice, you know? Because I remember when we recorded that song.
Still that way.
Mike said I lost my mind, but I remember listening to the Grateful Dead live in Europe, and they did China Cat Sunflower that went into I Know You Rider, and I'm thinking, damn, you know. But I remember spending almost 2 months in the bathroom with a guitar trying to figure out how to do that. And finally I got him to agree to do it. And then we found out it was a PD song, so that helped.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's got about
I know.
10 verses.
Not go away.
Oh, he's got a whole bunch of verses, but the Grateful Dead only
He
did.
loves writing.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
That's how you feel, man.
That was the most frightened he's ever been recording a song because he was
I had
had
to
to
sing.
get to sing baritone and play the banjo, and he had to do a solo thing with just the bass, and we had him singing.
Ricky's Cags and I did.
That's right, but the bass.
Oh, yeah.
But we did it that way so Mike could play the dobro,
Yeah.
because there was no really dobro part in it. So we wanted to play dobro during the singing, and he couldn't do that, and do it.
Couldn't sing and play it over, huh?
Well, you could if we'd overdub, but we weren't doing that.
We always tried to record just like we would do it on stage.
I like that.
At least early on we did.
Well, when we just did that.
anymore, do you?
No,
Actually, Dream
That
Scene
was
was
too
recorded
bad.
like this.
Yeah, we did. Dream Scene, we did.
I like
We did it live head on.
Good.
Last one John played on.
I
Yeah,
really
and-
hated
and-
that song so bad that when we just did the 40th, I was sitting next to Fred. We came back after the
So
encore.
getting off the stage.
And I said, if Dudley calls Ryder for the encore, I'm leaving.
Blame it on me, Mike. Go ahead.
And did you?
We did it.
Of course. The audience was called.
did it.
The audience wanted. The audience wanted that
That's right,
song.
they're paying the bill.
Well, Mike and I were sitting over on the side, and they were all huddled in the middle. And he said, "Did you hear what it is?" I said, "I think it's Ryder." And he did. He said, "I'm getting out of here."
Well, there's nothing for you to do.
Well, we
except
actually
the very end,
we built in a dobro.
we built in a dobro
play.
player.
I played that thing 3,000 times and I thought, I don't need 3,000 more.
3,001, come on, Mike.
Bathroom, they got so tired of hearing it.
Everybody wants to hear it.
I know that lady hasn't said.
Yes.
That's another bucket of bugs.
Was that
Jim Dance lay down
the time
south.
that Charlie Waller did Dark as a Dungeon for the electricity? Was that the 15th? That was the
15. Yeah, that was nice.
Boy, that was awesome.
That was nice.
Electricity.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
the
was really
15th,
nice.
that was wonderful.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was
Was that the one at the Kennedy Center?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was wonderful.
We all know who named the Seldom Scene.
Was it
Charlie. Yeah.
He just told somebody as a joke, because he heard we were just gonna play one night a week for fun, and
He said that to me
He said that to
at
you?
a festival. He said, I hear you and Duffy and a bunch of guys have a band. He said, I never hear of it. You're not playing any place. What do you call yourselves, the Seldom Scene? And I said, well, I didn't even, and I told you guys that.
I told Duffy that, and Duffy said, hey.
Yeah. I think it was your idea, and you said, let's spell scene, S-C-E-N-E.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go with that.
I don't remember that part, but.
Yeah, that was you.
Well, now, where did Len Holsclaw get involved? Because he's taking the credit for that, coming up with that.
He had heard us.
It was his idea that we got together.
We got together.
Not the
And
name.
as a matter of fact, I was down in North Carolina at Fort Bragg doing a year of general surgery. Read, and all of a sudden I get a call from Ben or Mike or somebody said, hey, there's this rumor out that we're getting the band together and John Duffy's gonna be playing in it. And you're in it. And I went, oh my God. I started breathing heavy and everything. Then I got up there and I was moved into the street, just down the house down the road down the street from Ben, and we started talking about it. I said, yeah, but we haven't heard that Duffy hadn't called. We don't know anything. So we called him.
Well, what happened was Mike and I had been playing with Cliff the year before,
Yeah.
and I quit at the end of, I think I quit at the end of August or right after Labor Day that year, and you quit
You were late for the show.
a couple of weeks.
Late for
I
the
was. You got a good memory.
Late for the show.
But you quit a week or so after him, and we both basically quit Cliff at the same time. And Cliff called me. I don't know. It was probably the first week, sometime early October, late September, and said, "Can you put your old basement band together and come fill in for me on Wednesday night at the Red Fox? Because I want to go to." He wanted to go to the DJ convention.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did. It was you and it was Mike and John, Dave, Bruce Barnes. And I can't remember whether we got Tom.
I think Gary Henderson.
Was it Gary Henderson?
Gary Henderson, yeah.
But when we were there that night, a guy from the Rabbit's Foot called the Red Fox and said that they were interested in starting bluegrass there down at the Rabbit's Foot, and how to get in touch with the band that was playing there, because he heard that there was, I guess Cliff had built up a pretty good audience. He said, well, Cliff's not here, but these guys sound all right. You want to talk to one of them? So I said, sure. So I went back and talked to the guy, and he told me that he wanted somebody in there the first Monday in November of 1971. I said, could you do it? And I said, without going back and asking these guys, sure, we'll do it.
Sure.
We'll do it. And then we decided to call John a few days later and ask him if he'd be interested in doing it. And I remember you calling from my kitchen. And I was expecting, you were talking to him, and I was expecting to say, well, okay, John, that's okay. I know you're probably busy. So. And he said, and I hear Starling saying, yeah, I think we could get together next Monday night. Would that be all right? And I'm going, what? John wants to do this? So that's kind of the way it all happened.
And we did a practice session or two or something, and we thought, and John kind of looked like he said, I think this might work out. And then we thought, well, who are we gonna get for a bass player? And we
Called Tom, and first night we played at the Rabbit's Foot, we were so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And the Newgrass Revival guys were in there that night.
Was this a Bluegrass Alliance at the time?
No, I think they were. They may have been. It was Ebo and Sam Bush and Courtney. And I remember I had a pack of cigarettes, a used pack of cigarettes, Target or something cigarettes that I kept in my case for about 4 years. That belonged to Courtney. But I was embarrassed how bad we were that night.
Oh yeah. We did
and then 2 weeks later, the Redskins game was on that Monday night, and
Richard Dress.
And they wouldn't turn off the TV. The guy they had a TV right beside the stage, and there was another little one up on the counter on the bar, and Richard Dress,
Not long ago.
right, I've seen him in years. But Richard was in there, and he went up to the bartender a couple of times and asked him if he'd mind turning the sound off. He might, leave the picture. And the bartender had evidently been drinking. Anyway, I just remember the last two we were doing on the first set, we were doing Get in Line, Brother. And we were all singing on it. Everybody was gathered, and I remember looking at it, and I see Richard, this big goon, that Richard back in the, going out the door. And Richard was just as mellow. I mean, he is just the nicest, sweetest, nice guy. Anyway, I went outside after, and Richard was gone. I was, a little bit concerned about him. And anyway, I was out there. Some other guy came out. We were out there on the street chatting. Next thing I know, here comes Tom with his bass, Mike everybody's walking out with their cases, and so what's going on? I ain't playing this goddamn. So John and I went up to the Red Fox.
Yeah, watch the end of the game.
Finished watching the game and got a job at the Red Fox.
Oh my gosh, you get blame it on the Redskins.
Ben, they probably go ahead and turn the TV off now. It wouldn't be a problem.
Didn't they play the game while y'all were performing?
Pardon me?
Did they play the game while y'all were performing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they left the game on.
Volume and everything.
Yeah,
That's
right.
like leaving
TV
the
was right by the
jukebox on.
stage.
Yeah.
Bad. Oh, bad.
Yeah, but that's the way we got our job at the Red Fox.
What was the guy's name?
First Tuesday.
Roderick.
You guys played there for it. Did Bill, did y'all?
Bill started
Red
there.
Fox?
Yeah.
We were the first.
Well, you were the first ones ever. No, but I mean after when you the
We played it a few times.
Yeah.
The guy that owned it was a guy by the name of Bobby Edwards. That's who owned and managed it. He was behind it.
Before Walt brought it. Before Walt? Yeah, Walt was the guy that had it when we first started.
That's where you hired me.
That's right.
All I remember is the pool, you can hear the pool. Going in the back,
Yeah.
the pool hall, you can hear the balls.
That's
Percussion.
Other than turning off the
Percussion,
TV, that's the second worst thing. The worst thing that can happen is, okay, here's the band's gonna play, uncover the pool table.
Yeah, they get ready to start. You guys go ahead and shoot some
Oh,
pool.
that's funny.
Oh, God.
Well, this geezing's been too much fun.
Yeah, man. Forgot.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to see you guys and watching, and they had TV. This is when it was you and Cliff, or maybe Wayne. I don't know, early
Me and
on.
Cliff and Tom Gray.
In '60.
Bill Poffenberger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember watching the Chicago riots on television back in the back while you guys were playing. I think the sound was off, but I remember being over there because I was a regular. I was over there stealing licks from this guy.
You lived so close to it.
My recollection of how we got that, you guys were taking on your break, as I recall, you asked us. This was when it was the Ben Eldridge band, or the basement band. We played in his basement every, what was it, Thursday night or Tuesday night, Monday night, wherever you guys were with Cliff there, and you took a break, and you asked me to get up and I said play band and play Gaudreau, and I played the second set with you all, and at the end of the second set you said, "Hey man, you want a job?"
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I knew it.
That's right. I never told you that. I went home that night, and I was a big fan of you all's band. And my wife was at my sister's house. And
Just pregnant.
she was pregnant, and she was laying there on the couch waiting for me to come home from, I just went out to pick that night. And I came out and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but Emerson Waldron hired my ass tonight." And she said, "Well, it's been nice knowing you."
Ralph Stanley here not long ago. They were playing someplace I was filling in for you. Through the Seldom Scene, and it's down in Maryland, over Maryland.
Yeah. Walton.
Yeah, but anyway, he was up on the bus and this policeman comes up to me and says, "Mr. Stanley wants to know if you can come up there and talk to him." And I went, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I'll be glad to." So I went up there and talked to him. This was right after he won the Vocalist of the Year award. You remember that?
From the Country Music Awards.
Yeah.
Not the Bluegrass.
Ralph Stanley?
Ralph Stanley.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, from that movie.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, I told him, I said, "Ralph, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven when I heard that you won that award." But I said, "I also thought, what did Carter say?" Because Carter Stanley was probably one of my heroes. In terms of singing.
He's still my favorite.
Oh, man.
I don't remember that.
What did he have an answer for you, John?
What?
Did Ralph have an answer for you when you said?
Oh, he said, "Oh yeah, Ralph, I'm sure would be looking down and said, he doesn't deserve it."
Ralph Stanley was the one guy that did not get John Duffey.
Oh, no.
He didn't know what was happening there.
I think it's as much cultural though as it is musical. I think Ralph.
Yeah.
I'm shooting from the hip here, but I think Ralph feels threatened by that. John's from a metropolitan area. He's got a little bit of an education, and I think it freaks him out. I don't think it's musical. I think it's a cultural.
Well, I also agree with Pete. We talked about this earlier. I think a lot of this may not have been as bad as it sounded as it read in the book.
It read pretty bad.
I know it did.
I was there at the section he talks about.
Oh, you were?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of them people are gone now. But the song he talks about, Lonesome River, it wasn't Lonesome River. They did that first. And it was great.
Yeah.
And everything he says up until that point is correct in the book. But it was the Fields Have Turned Brown was the one where they moved the key up.
Well, they put it up in F and he recorded it in D.
And they were happy. And they put Fields of Turn Brown out first, even though it's the second one.
Well, they ended up doing it in D though, didn't they?
They did it in the original key. What he says in there about John asking him, do you want to do it in the original key? And Ralph said, yeah, that'd be fine. That really happened,
I'll tell you a weird story.
but I was there, you know, so.
Did you record that?
No, Roy Homer did, but I would go hang out.
Right.
I'll tell you something funny about that. It was my brother, Jack, came over and played on, he played drums on this song, whatever we did with Cliff. And your father said, I've got something in here that Ralph Stanley did. Would you lay a track of drums on there? So my brother did. And it was just real light drums.
It's just a snare.
So I went to Ralph, and I thought that's really cool. Brother played on a Ralph Stanley record. And I went to Ralph at a festival one time, and you know, he's kind of a hard dude to talk to too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, you know, I don't know if you know this, but that was my brother that was playing drums. He said, I never had any drums on any of my records. And he didn't even know they were on there. Dick Freeland put it on there without even telling him.
No, that's not true. He told Ralph he wanted to do that.
And
He forgot.
and so it's,
He wanted to.
Oh, so he changed it.
He changed the story.
Yeah.
well, my brother said he was on the cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And Ralph and him, Ralph stayed at our house. And they were at the dining room table, my dad saying, yeah, I would like to put this little, you know, snare drum on that.
That's always been a mystery to me.
Feller says there's drums on my record.
Just a snare drum.
It was like I was really insulting him. Drums on my record. I don't know who your brother is, but
Be sure to tell you, Dad, that we all agree he was our hero.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
But the other thing about that, and you guys were there, you remember how hard it was to convince John to play Hit Parade of Love? Because you guys were playing right before Jimmy Martin. And the last song you did was, I mean, that was like all day trying to talk John into doing it.
No, I don't. Well, it's because
And
we used to go.
I was backstage and, you know, yeah. And he did that. And his sons were in the band, and I was back there. His sons were cracking up. They couldn't stop laughing.
Where was this from?
Camp Springs.
That's North Carolina.
Attack or something? Oh, yeah, Sam Bush came over and finished doing the sound. No,
It was Gettysburg.
That was
Gettysburg. Where they pulled
That was
you.
in Gettysburg.
And then Sam Bush took your place.
I got a tape of it.
Sam Bush took your place.
Sam wanted to.
Yeah, Sam. Sam played Mule Skinner
Sam
Blues.
came up with us.
And since Akira's got everything labeled.
No,
He can actually find it.
So, what's the
Kara,
story?
I've got to have some
story?
of this one of these days.
What's the story of the Sam Bush?
John, somebody asked me.
Fred Bartenstein pulled John Starling off of the stage to go look at this guy who was in distress for something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just right off the stage.
Well,
Yeah, we're right in the middle of the set.
Yeah, I mean, he just finished the
I saw
song.
that.
And Sam Bush was watching, and I said, "Do you want to play?" He says, "I can play the Charlie Waller guitar." And he said, "Well, that'd be fun." And they
Sam
didn't
Bush
move.
got him play guitar?
Yeah.
Yes. Man.
Mule Skinner Blues.
Did you save the guy?
What?
Did
He
you?
doesn't
How
even
was the guy?
remember.
Well, the guy was probably okay. You know, I remember this going back at it, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Probably had too much to drink. But
Take one of my hot dogs over for snacks.
They all did something I would never do.
Bluegrass got started in the Washington area. It really did, and partially because of where did she go? There she is.
Right there.
Right there.
Katy.
I mean, it was drive time bluegrass. WAMU was drive time bluegrass. It was on late in the afternoon, and all of the festivals were pretty much around the Washington area. It was Culpeper, Warrenton, you know, Indian Springs. And all we'd had to drive was Reidsville, North Carolina. You know, but they were all in that little area that was fairly easy to get to, and that's what made it work.
Yeah, but it was a hotbed
Carlton
before
Haynes.
all that. It was, I mean, it was a great bands around DC back in the 50s, early 60s.
Oh, yeah. Well, but it's when the country gentlemen moved from the Centerville truck stop to Georgetown all of a sudden, you know, and it became urban bluegrass.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what,
But then again, you gotta hand it to John. Without John, you know, great as Jimmy is, you know, I'm like you, I saw him down there at Camp Springs, North Carolina, on stage, and I said, man, listen to that guy.
I know.
That little notey sound.
Standing on his tiptoes.
And he is my favorite mandolin player, and I played with a bunch of them, I'll tell you. But John had that vision, you know, and he knew how to, and it was like, he knew how to sell it, as Jimmy said.
Yeah.
Man, he'd get up there and I remember when we played one time together, only one time after I quit the band, which was one about 59 or 60, something like that. 71, Jimmy had to go do his Army reserve duty thing, his summertime thing, to go away for 2 weeks.
Jimmy Martin?
Sure.
No, Jimmy. And so we got John Duffey to come there to the Shamrock and do a gig that night. And a guy taped it, and then we were playing Mule Skinner blues, you know. And we were really trying to outdo each other. You know? I mean, it's the first time we played together 10 or 15 years, you know, and we just.
It's incredible.
And after I took my break, John said, "Did you ever think about going professional?"
Okay, I gotta tell you.
I couldn't finish the song.
Talking about professional, I gotta tell this one.
I know that's the story.
Okay, so back when I was a little short period, I was back with the Seldom Scene in the early 90s. We were flying here and driving there, you know, so I had two cases, guitar cases. I had one that was meant to put my guitar in when we flew, and one that I just threw it in when we were driving. And so we just finished flying somewhere, and I had it in the flying case, and I'd been working at the hospital and operating and going out there, and I was real busy. We had to take off to drive to the Philadelphia Folk Festival. I'll never forget this. Now, I opened the trunk of the car, looked in there, and said, "Oh, there it is. Okay, I remember." And closed it back. I had forgotten that I had come down 2 days before and taken the guitar out and taken it up to my apartment, and I'd forgotten that. So when we got to the Philadelphia Folk Festival, you know, I opened the case up and there's no guitar in it. So Ben's playing it. I had to borrow his guitar. And I can never will forget what John Duffey had to say to me. Pardon the expression. Some professional.
Just had a way with words.
I have to go. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
We got to
Everybody in this room has really, really, truly provided great music for my whole life, and I thank you so much because I really, really love every one of you and what you've done for bluegrass. So thank you very much.
Well, we like to
And bring out the record to me.
I'm going to.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Travel safe.